What if I told you that your focus was like a muscle, and that muscle could be improved by what you looked at, listened to, or even smelled before you study? Well, in this episode of the Student Performance Podcast, I'm going to teach you the research-backed ways to strengthen your focus so you can get more work done in a shorter amount of time. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Student Performance Podcast, where we dive deep into the science of concepts you never knew had such a big impact on your well-being as a student. My mission is not only to transform your life in the classroom, but help you live a more fulfilled life outside of it as well. So something I know for sure that each and every one of you guys out there listening to this can improve upon is your focus. We live in a world that preys on your attention span. Whether it's a 10-second TikTok, notifications on your phone, or people vying for your attention, in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to set your life up in a way that gives you no other choice than to be productive. So let me give you the layout of this episode. First, I'm going to go over the different neurotransmitters in your brain that are responsible for the different parts of your focus. Believe it or not, focus is just like a muscle, where we can actually train it to be better each and every day. When you understand the neurochemistry, you'll be able to understand and biohack your brain to achieve that highly coveted flow state that allows you to get into the zone more quickly. After that, I'm going to give you 5 focus modalities that you can perform every single day that have been proven time and time again in research to increase your focus and productivity. And lastly, I'm going to tell you how I personally use these modalities to maximize my deep work blocks and how you can implement them into your daily lives as well. So as always, I have everything timestamped, so feel free to skip around the podcast as you wish. So there are 3 main neurotransmitters that all contribute to modulating your focus in your brain. The first is called norepinephrine or noradrenaline. This is the chemical involved in wakefulness, memory, alertness, and general readying the brain for action. Increases in its concentration causes the brain to become aroused and leads to improvement in cognitive functioning, including attentional focus and a speeding of your reaction times. It activates brain regions including the medial prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, which are regions in your brain involved in mental flexibility and oversees the planning and execution of your decisions. Norepinephrine is one of the best and easiest molecules in the brain to hack, so stay tuned for those modalities later on in this episode. Next is acetylcholine, which is an important neurotransmitter in the brain for paying attention, learning, and memory. So as we just talked about, norepinephrine is the chemical in your brain that makes you feel alert. And acetylcholine is the molecule that really puts a spotlight on what you're trying to focus on and then blocks out everything else. This helps you label which areas of your visual field are important and inhibit nearby distractions which may otherwise disturb you. It also helps you sustain focus for a long period of time. A lot of us have very low concentrations of acetylcholine in our brain because we're constantly absorbing short-form content, which ruins our attention span. The last neurotransmitter is dopamine. Now, I think a lot of people view dopamine as the pleasure hormone, but as Dr. Angie Huberman talks about all the time, dopamine is actually more involved in motivation and drive. Dopamine helps enhance our attention, especially in the context of making sure that you pay attention and shifts your focus from task to task. Think of this as the engine to your focus that helps sustains it and keeps it going. All right, so let's talk about the tools to improve your focus. The first and most important thing we need to address to improve your focus is your study or work environment. I don't care if you implement all the focus tools I go over in this podcast. If you are in a place where you're constantly going to get distracted, you'll never be productive, ever. A study out of UC Irvine that was just published a couple years back showed that it takes, on average, people 22.5 minutes to completely regain their focus after being distracted. So every phone notification or family member calling out your name will get you out of this focused state. That is why you first need to put your phone off and in a completely different room. Just the mere presence of your phone right next to you will distract you. Our brains are association machines. So once you look at your phone, it will cue your brain to wonder, who's texting me right now? What's on Instagram? An even better solution is to go to the library on the quiet floors and leave your phone at home or in your car. I will repeat this on every podcast episode if I need to. Productivity is not about your willpower. It's about putting yourself in a situation where the only possible thing you have to do is to complete your work. Okay? So now you have put yourself in a situation where you can be completely focused. The question you probably have next is how long you should be studying or performing a focused work bout before taking a break. And lucky for you, our physiology has the answer. I think everyone out there listening to this is familiar with our circadian rhythm, which is our sleep-wake cycle. We actually have something called our Ultradian rhythm, which is based on our neurochemistry and hormone levels. As you can see with this graph on the screen, our Ultradian rhythm are 90-minute cycles before needing a break. The next question I'm sure you probably have is how long should our breaks be? And I know this graph shows around 20 minutes, but this is individualized for everyone. For me, I like having at least 30-minute breaks before I go back into a state of deep work, and sometimes it's even longer depending on my schedule or what I'm working on. What's crucially important is what you're doing during these breaks. You could take a 90-minute break, but if you're just scrolling on your phone or watching Netflix the whole time, you aren't going to feel refreshed at all. You actually want to avoid narrowly focusing your attention on a screen, which brings me to my first focus modality, which I feel that everyone overlooks, which is giving your eyes a break. When you're studying for 90 minutes, you're narrowly focusing on a book or your computer screen. During this time, our brain is secreting norepinephrine, which again is great for our alertness. But we don't always want to have this heightened state of norepinephrine. We want to modulate it, right? Bring it up and down when we actually need it. Plus, our eyes get tired and need to relax as well. So one of my favorite things to do during a break, which my dog Milo really likes, is to go outside for a walk. Walking is great for our creativity and lets our subconscious mind consolidate what we just learned. Something important for your walks is try not to look at your feet the whole time, right? Try to look upwards toward the horizon. This shifts our narrow gaze, right, when we're studying into a wider gaze, which puts us in a parasympathetic state or a restful state. And this helps us recharge our batteries. A good walking time would be around 15 to 20 minutes, again, so we can allow our eyes to relax. And speaking of exercise, as I've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, working out is the best modality for your focus and learning. It's truly one of the only things you can do to be able to get all of those 3 neurotransmitters I just discussed in the beginning of the episode, in addition to a molecule called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is the miracle grow for your brain. It's been shown in research that students who exercised before they studied were more focused, alert, and remembered things 20% faster compared to those who didn't. As Dr. Rady discussed in my previous episode, it doesn't really matter what type of exercise you do as long as you enjoy it so you'll stay consistent. He says that exercise is like taking a little bit of Adderall and a little bit of Prozac. It does the exact same things in our brain. So everyone out there listening to this needs to be exercised daily, especially before you study. So after exercise, I do another thing to increase my focus, and that's to take a cold shower. Now, a lot of you guys probably are cringing at this, especially as we're in the winter months, but cold exposure is so good for you. When we take a cold shower, we feel really uncomfortable, which causes our brain to be flooded with norepinephrine, making us feel extremely alert, thus increasing our energy levels, concentration, productivity, and our cognitive performance. My most productive work block of the day is always after I work out and take a cold shower. Not only do I feel incredible, but I get into the state of hyper-focus that is truly unmatched. So let's shift to talking about caffeine, the focus modality that probably a majority of you guys out there listening to this abuse. I once had a roommate in college who had such a bad caffeine addiction that he actually would get withdrawal symptoms if he didn't have at least 3 cups of coffee a day. This is obviously not what we want to do at all. We want to first get our 8 hours of sleep so we aren't relying on caffeine to keep us alert. I did a whole episode on optimizing your sleep, so go ahead and check that episode out. But we want to strategically utilize caffeine, just like all the other modalities I went over, to boost our concentration when we need it the most. So here are some guidelines. First, you don't want to drink coffee within the first 90 to 120 minutes after waking up. It's actually been shown ineffective in improving your alertness during this time because your adrenal system is already producing a bunch of hormones that's warming up your body for the day. So you want to utilize your caffeine for the mid-morning or early afternoon. It takes caffeine about 20 minutes to kick in. So you can drink your cup of coffee 20 minutes before a work block or actually during your block to maximize its benefits. Try to stop drinking caffeine around 3 p.m. because then it starts to affect your circadian rhythm, making it harder for you to fall asleep. Lastly, let's talk about our auditory system. Are there any sounds that we can listen to improve our focus? Well, there's actually been experiments, one most recently performed in Nature, that showed that listening to 40 hertz binaural beats increased people's focus and ability to complete a memory task. What is 40 hertz binaural beats, you may ask? Well, it's this sound. I actually created a tool that you can access free here on YouTube. That's a 90-minute Ultradian rhythm timer with 40 hertz binaural beats playing in the background. So if you want to check that out, click the little eye in the top right-hand corner of the video. But personally, I think this tone is a little annoying, so I don't use it every time I study. But sometimes during my walk, I'll listen to it, or I'll listen to it during a short time during my working block. But again, this is just another tool in your focus toolkit to use at your discretion. So the last thing I want to speak about in regards to your focus before I talk about implementing these tools is revitalizing your soul. And what I mean by that is that no matter how many of these tools you use, if you are in a bad mood, it's going to be extremely hard to focus. Sometimes the best thing to do for your focus in the long term is not to be focusing at all. Things like hanging out with friends or volunteering for a cause that's meaningful for you so you can replenish your capacity to focus without feeling burned out. Even though these things seem unproductive, they're really important for your social vitality and mental health that help prevent burnout. A perfect example of this is in my life. Every Wednesday, I play slow pitch softball with a bunch of my friends from high school. And sometimes these games start at 9 p.m. Every other weekday, I'm asleep at 9 p.m. But these softball games are something I look forward to every week, and it really revitalizes my soul and provides me some vitality to finish my week strong. Because the truth is, if you aren't able to enjoy yourself and spend time with the people you love, then why the hell are you working so hard in the first place, right? So now I gave you all these tools, right? What's the best way to implement them? So let me give you a rundown of my day. Currently, I'm doing 4 deep work blocks a day. I usually wake up around 5 a.m. and right when I wake up, I do this 13-minute focus meditation exercise that I've outlined in previous videos. But basically, I focus my attention on my breath or my mind's eye for 13 minutes. When I feel my focus drifting, I bring it back to my breath. Now, not everyone can meditate right when they wake up because they'll fall right back to sleep. But this exercise helps me warm up my focus for the day. Next, I'll hop out of bed, do 20 push-ups, and drink my athletic greens. And by 5:30, I'm working. So I complete my first work block around 7 a.m. and I immediately make my 2 cups of coffee. Then I drink the first cup while I'm taking my dog Milo for a 20-minute walk, where I'm shifting my gaze from the narrow view to the wider view to give my eyes a break. Another thing to mention is that I haven't checked my phone yet. That won't come until the end of the second block. Then I'll head back to work from 7:30 to 9 a.m., which I'll be drinking my second cup of coffee. I don't think I really need the caffeine boost, to be honest, but I just really like drinking it and it puts me in a good mood, which sometimes is half the battle to staying focused. Something worth noting is that doing back-to-back work blocks like this with only a 30-minute break is pretty difficult on the mind, and I wouldn't recommend it to people beginning to train their focus. However, something that really helps me is that I'm working on tasks that use different parts of my brain. For example, maybe in my first block, I'm more in an encoding phase, where I'm reading and taking notes and mind mapping how all these different concepts that I'm learning connect together and fit into my everyday life. And then during the second block, maybe I'm more in a retrieval phase of learning, where I'm reviewing flashcards and doing practice problems. I found that if I'm just doing encoding for 2 blocks in a row or doing retrieval practice for 2 blocks in a row, my brain tends to tire out and get bored more quickly. After my second study block, I head to the gym where I'm doing some sort of HIIT cardio workout. My brain is pretty tired, so the fact I can get to work out in a group where the trainer is just telling me what to do, I can basically let my brain go numb, and it really helps my recovery a lot. During these sessions, I'm working out pretty hard. And I found that the harder I work out, the better I feel afterwards to get back to work. So after my workout, like I mentioned earlier, I take a cold shower. I set my Apple Watch for a timer for 3 minutes, and then once that timer hits, I immediately set the temperature to hot. So cold exposure is something you have to train. So don't go to 3 minutes right away. Maybe you start at 1 minute and then improve to 2 and then 3 and then so on. After working out and taking a cold shower, you feel incredible and you're ready to crush your next work block. My third focus work block starts around 10:30, 11 to around noon to 12:30. After the third work block, I eat lunch and take a nap. Yes, I know, a nap. I take a little siesta every single day. Because if you think about it, it's noon and I've already completed 4.5 hours of work, got an intense workout in. My body definitely needs a little time to recoup. And as I outlined in my sleep episodes, naps are really good for your overall health and for your learning capacity. So if you want to learn more about naps, again, hit that icon in the top right-hand corner to learn more. Then I start my fourth and final work block for the day, 90 minutes after I completed my third work block. I usually listen to 40 Hertz binaural beats for 15 minutes beforehand while drinking some decaffeinated tea during my work block, just to put me in a good mood. And that's it. My workday is usually done by around 3:30 to 4 at the latest. For me, 4 work blocks is the perfect number because if I really need to, I could do another one, but it allows me to have the rest of the night to recover, hang out with friends, and get to bed by 9 to start the process over again. So again, this is my work schedule, which isn't conducive for everyone and probably a majority of you guys. So take what you like and throw the rest away. So something worth of note is that I'm implementing at least one of the research-backed modalities I outlined in the podcast to enhance my focus because they really do help. I can definitely feel a major difference in the amount of work I get done since I'm less distracted. But for you guys, the schedule could be good for midterms or finals where you don't have any class and need to put in a lot of study time. But for days that you do have class, focus on at least getting one of these deep work sessions in a day. Preferably the morning before class. You just make it easier on yourself and won't have to put off your independent studying time. But maybe you have 8 a.m. classes and aren't a morning person at all. That's totally fine. After class, immediately go to the gym and get a workout in so you can wipe away all those cognitive cobwebs, say that 5 times fast, you have on your brain after a long day in the classroom. Then immediately get a 90-minute work session in so you can utilize all the amazing brain chemicals that are flowing through your mind. I advise all my students to do this in between classes as well. Take a look at your weekly schedule for your classes, appointments, obligations, and see where you can start fitting in these deep, concentrated work sessions in. Okay, so we definitely gone over a lot, but before we wrap it up, let's answer one of your guys' questions. The first comes from Andrew from California, and he asks, what do you think of the Pomodoro technique? This is something that really gets me fired up. So for you guys who don't know, the Pomodoro technique is this productivity hack where you're supposed to study for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute rest and repeat that cycle for however long your little heart desires. So to be frank, I think the Pomodoro technique is complete bullshit, but there are some good lessons we can take from it because it is very popular. The cons of the technique is, as you probably guessed, it takes us 22 minutes on average to get into the state of complete focus. Well, if we're taking a break after 25 minutes of work, then we're only getting 3 minutes of complete focus time. That doesn't really make any sense, right? And then this 5-minute break. This is not nearly enough time to actually feel revitalized so we can focus again. And what most students do is they go on their phone and check Instagram and become distracted during this time because what else could you do in 5 minutes, right? So let's talk about how we can modify this because there are actually some really beneficial elements of the Pomodoro technique. The main benefit is that we're breaking down an intimidating task like studying into smaller, manageable elements. Students could wrap their head around studying for 25 minutes, way more than 90 minutes of studying. So this lowers the barrier of entry or activation energy for all my enzyme fans out there to study, which is great. So some studying, no matter how inefficient it is better than zero studying, right? But we can modify this technique to optimize your focus and really stimulate your learning. So it's not to take a break every 25 minutes, but to change the type of studying or even subject you're working on every 25 minutes. For example, maybe you'll take notes from your biology textbook for 25 minutes and then switch to reviewing flashcards or doing practice problems for the next 25 minutes. Then after that, maybe you switch subjects entirely and take OChem notes for 25 minutes and then do OChem practice problems for another 25 minutes. So now you're still focusing for around 90 minutes total, but you're stimulating your brain in different ways so you don't get bored. This process takes into account the principle of interleaving, which I'll dive deeper into a later episode during the season, but it helps you distinguish the information more efficiently when you're constantly changing the ways you study. So that was a great question. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend to help improve their focus as well. And start implementing some of these research-backed techniques into your schedule. Don't feel like you have to copy what I do. Remember, this season is called the Student Performance Toolkit. These are all tools proven in science to help you become a better student, but the implementation is not uniform. Everyone has different schedules, tendencies, and circadian rhythms. So just focus on implementing one of these tips, hopefully it's working out, into your schedule so you can make small improvements from there. All right, everyone. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next episode.